Yo, 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 good morning, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching. It is your boy, Miles Grant here. Welcome to a brand new episode, something in my eye, of the Miles Grant Show. Today's topic, why I've been off social media. I have had a bit of a sabbatical this year with social media. Over the past 18 months, some of you may know that we have been growing a coaching brand, a accredited coach training company. If you're here, by the way, let me know in the comments that you're here. Give me a yo. Michelle, Miley's in the house. Good to see you, Michelle. Hope you're well. So I've been off social media for a while. I've needed a break. And over the past 18 months, we've been growing this coaching business, and much of our online promotion has been through paid advertising. And over the past few months, I've kind of taken a bit of a back seat with being on social media, because I found myself falling into a little bit of a bad habit of consuming social media rather than creating, as a good friend Daniel Priestley would say. We've got Andrea's here, Hillary's here. Good morning, great to see you. And so in this video, I want to this is pre-coaching branding, coaching business. I used to do a daily show on Facebook called Miles More Motivation, which was me in my kitchen. Really enjoyed that show, and this is me kind of bringing it back. But I wanted to share in this video why I've been off social media, and why you might want to consider being off social media too, if any of what I share with you relates. So this in itself, one of my mentors always used to say, you know, when you produce social media content, don't produce it for other people, produce it for you. And so this session for me is a bit more for me than it is for my audience. But just so you know, what I mean by that is it's very much me kind of sharing where I'm at and why I've been offline, and a lot of that I'm sure is going to relate to you as well. So I found that sometimes in life I can, and maybe you can relate, sometimes in life I believe we can succeed in one or two areas, and that sometimes can be at the cost of other areas. So over the past 18 months, we built this incredible business, and there's been a cost. Over the past 18 months, especially the past 9 months this year, I probably have had more periods of what many people would label depression than I've ever had before. And it's been a difficult time, and I feel out of that now. And I want to share with you in this video kind of what I've done to bring myself out, because over the past few months, Sati and I have had some distance. She won't mind me saying that. Good morning, Laura. Great to see you. And that distance hasn't been because there's fundamentally been a problem with us and our marriage. It's because there's been some things within me that have been unresolved. Now, those of you that don't know me on a personal level, I was raised by my mum, a single parent on a council estate in Birmingham. Hi, Mum, if you're watching. And as a result of that upbringing, it brought about some emotional instability in me. For example, you know, my mum had a tough childhood herself. Her parents weren't there. They both left her very young. My dad wasn't present. My dad wasn't there. And so as a result, as I grew up into my adolescent years, I found it challenging to find my footing in terms of my masculinity and femininity. And so in the past few months, that's really, really come to the forefront, because building a business requires a very masculine energy. And I've actually felt quite drained of my masculinity, to be honest with you. And it's caused problems with Sati and with a lot of people in my life who maybe I've been close to, and then we've drifted apart. And I want to kind of share in this session kind of what I've done to come out of that, and what I recommend if you've ever felt any sort of period of really low for yourself, things that have really made a huge difference for me. So earlier this year, I had probably about 3 months of therapy, which is very powerful. I'm a big fan of therapy. Big fan of therapy. For me, the difference, for those of you that know, being a coach, The difference between coaching and therapy for me is therapy really deals with the present moment and the past, and coaching is really about present moment and future. And so the therapy really helped me to kind of bring to the surface some of the things in the past that I'd maybe left unresolved. And so if you feel that you've got things inside of you that maybe you're keeping to yourself, you know, a coaching question I often ask my clients is, you know, what don't you want most people to know about you? And the reason I love that question is because, and it's a mentor of mine, Rich Litvin, who I first heard say that question. The reason I like that question, what don't you want people to know about you, is it presupposes that if you've got something inside of you that you usually keep to yourself, then verbalizing it out loud, which is often what therapy is perceived to do, helps you to bring it from being stored down low to coming up. And I often say that conversation, whether that's coaching or therapy, is very much like a form of exfoliation for your spirit and your soul. So therapy was a big thing for me. Another thing that really helped was shadow work. So if you're unfamiliar with Carl Jung's work on the shadow, Carl Jung's work effectively says, to kind of give you the short version, that within us we all have a light persona, light persona and a dark persona, which he calls the shadow, and that most people are afraid of their shadow because their shadow is all the negative thoughts, all the past history that maybe is still there inside of them, laying dormant, that feels painful, that they've maybe not dealt with and resolved. Any feeling of resentment to another person, any feeling of judgment, blame, shame, guilt, anger, frustration, comparison, anxiety, sadness probably not so much, but anything that you would generally keep to yourself. Shadow work is a really, really good way of bringing that up. A lot of it requires you to just sit and journal within yourself and write down what comes up. You may have heard of inner child work. A lot of shadow work can start in childhood, but it's not all childhood, because let's pretend that you're in a marriage and you've had a bad abusive relationship. That's got nothing to do with your childhood, right? Some would argue that it would, but I'd argue that it's about that experience in that moment. So without going off on a tangent, shadow work for me, what it helped me to recognize is that there was a what I call an emotional irregularity in me. So I'm a kind of person that I'm all or nothing. You know, I'm either incredibly high or I'm incredibly low, and there's not very many times until the past few months where I've found it challenging to kind of be in the middle. Since I started doing shadow work, and then previous to that having therapy, I've found that my emotions have a better level of regulation, which means that there's less high highs and less lower lows, which means that there's more emotional balance. And so shadow work really, really helped with that, what I call emotional regulation. So if you feel like you have lots of hose, wow, lots of hose. Feel like I'm in a hip hop video. The beauty of live video, lots of hose. If you feel like you've had lots of highs and also lots of lows, I'm laughing at my own jokes now. Beautiful thing that I love to do. Then it might be that you want to consider looking at shadow work, because that can be a really, really big help with that. And then in addition to that, something else that I found to be really, really impactful over the past few months is I've joined what's called a men's group. Now, a men's group, and there will be women's groups, female groups, ladies groups as well, has really been a space to effectively share how I'm feeling, my emotions, and really has been a place to articulate what I learned from my therapy and what I learned from my shadow work. And actually, one of the reasons, and one of the main reasons why I've been off social media, is because as I've been going through the therapy, the shadow work in the men's group, it's almost felt like I had an open wound that was almost intentionally opened. If you imagine somebody has a heart problem and they need a heart transplant, they've got to go in, open it up, and actually replace and do all that work. I feel like I've almost had a kind of almost like an emotional transplant where I've had some work that needed to be done. And so I've recognized that social media, being on social media from a consumption point of view, was probably not the best place for me to be. In our business, we've been very lucky because we're at a stage where we're using paid advertising. So we've been able to keep bringing people into our world without me posting online, but I've missed it. But I recognize that from my therapy, my shadow work, and my men's group, that I needed a period of time where I was not consuming, because as you know, you go on social media, and if you just scroll for all of a few minutes, I mean, yesterday, I scrolled for 5 minutes yesterday. It's the first time I've been online really for probably a couple of months. And in the space of 5 minutes, I saw a proposal and somebody that I know who'd lost their mum. And so if you have emotional irregularity and you're a kinesthetic person and you feel, and you're very open in terms of how you feel. And I know for me, growing up with just a mum, without that great sort of balance of masculinity and feminine energy, until recently, not been necessarily having that regulated. Anytime I've gone on social media, I've really felt the energy. So, seeing the proposal, that was like, wow. And I felt I was aware and I was able to observe, I felt the emotional high of that. But then on the same time, I saw the person who has lost their mum, and I felt the low of that. And when I logged out, I said to Sati, I said, wow, like, I'm glad I can now observe it. But there was a time before where I'd go on and I'd scroll and I'd come off and I'd feel so low. And I wondered why. And it was because I'd maybe processed someone experiencing something and I felt like I wasn't enough. Comparison, right? Maybe you relate to that. Or I'd see someone who was suffering and I would literally feel their suffering, and then that would wash over me. And then the next thing I know, Sati's saying to me, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I've spiraled into like a downward and I'm not feeling good in myself. So the reason I've been off social media, to cut a very long story short, for those that have just tuned in, is I've been going through an intense period of healing. This year has brought about a significant period of depression. But what I've learned about depression, a lot of people have, I think, the wrong interpretation of depression. I believe depression is purely a state, or it's a period in time. If you think about the term the Great Depression in the post-World War II, I think is when that was mainly used. I'm maybe getting my history wrong. It might have been World War I. But it was a period in time where the country was going through, the world was going through an economic down period. But then after a down comes a high. After nighttime comes daytime. And so what I don't want you to do in this video is to now send me messaging, are you okay? Because often what happens is people will do that because they'll have a feeling that a person has depression. No one has depression. Depression is a period of time. It's a state. And I experienced it for a period of time. And now I'm out of that. I'm able to now articulate what it was like to be in that period and what was some of the work that I was actually doing to bring myself out of that. Yeah. And I have under no illusions, there is going to probably be periods in my life again where I may go in. But now I have some new resources to help to bring out. So things I recommend: having a period off social media is obviously very beneficial. Therapy, very beneficial. One of the things I found about the men's group, and this is for men and women, what I'm about to say, is I've noticed over the years, I've become very emotionally codependent on Sati. And so what that means is I have almost made her become my wife, my best friend, my intimate partner, my lover, and my therapist and my life coach and my business partner. And that's not healthy. So if you're here and you're in a relationship and you would consider your partner to be your best friend, and you find that you spend most of your time unloading to your lover, your partner, your best friend, and you don't actually find that you spend as much time unloading to other people, such as friends, then you want to definitely consider doing that, as in unloading to others that aren't just your significant other. Because if you spend the large proportion of time unloading to your significant other before you've emotionally regulated, that can create a feeling of codependency, and that can actually blunt the intimacy. Because that romantic spark for me and Sati, I don't mind saying, the past few months intimacy literally went to the floor, and now it's like it's the beginning of our relationship again. And I think that the difference that's made the biggest difference has been me being part of a men's group where I'm literally going in to a small group of men, 5 or 6 men, and I'm checking in on how I'm feeling. And so by checking in on how you're feeling with someone that isn't your significant other, by the time I finish my men's group, I'm emotionally regulated, which means that I'm able to articulate how I'm feeling in my masculine energy to Sati. She then feels like she doesn't need to emotionally support me because I'm already getting that emotional support, which doesn't mean now that I'm not still communicating my feelings to her, but I'm not doing it from a place of please help me feel better, which obviously can really, really be detrimental to the intimate element of the relationship. Same for women, just replace the word men. So a female group to unload how you're feeling in terms of your feminine energy, especially important if you're a female and you're an entrepreneur. Because if you're a female and you're an entrepreneur, my mum wasn't an entrepreneur, but because she didn't have a man to support her supporting me growing up, what happened is she became very masculine. So because she became very masculine, I almost became her wife. So I became very feminine, and that femininity has become I've become too feminine, which has caused the emotional irregularity. I often find myself getting angry, or I have, and I now realize from the work I've been doing that anger has been my masculinity trying to fight through. So if you're a female watching and you're an entrepreneur, you want to make sure that you're doing things that allow you to be feminine. So being in a female group where you can talk about your feelings. If you're a female and you may be hearing that going, oh, that's not for me, it's probably exactly the thing that you need. So for me, the idea of being in a men's group talking about my feelings, I was like, oh no, I just talked to Sati. But I realized actually, no, I needed masculinity to help to balance that out. And now I feel more emotionally regulated than I probably ever felt. And I put that down to the therapy, the shadow work, and the men's group that I've been in. So that's why I've been off social media. I am back. I'm going to be doing probably more videos like this. So if you like this type of video, if you enjoy this, then kind of give me a like or a heart, or maybe even in the comments, let me know what's one thing that you've learned for yourself in this video. So what's something that you've learned for yourself? And yeah, stay tuned. Keep, if you're enjoying these videos, then there's going to be more of them. And yeah, I hope in some way this has helped you to maybe think about if you're going through a difficult period in your emotions. It's maybe hopefully help you to think about how you can process and emotionally regulate yourself and make sure that you've got the appropriate balance in your own masculine and femininity. That's it. We're done. Over and out. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you around. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out. Goodbye.